Hey guys, Paul Burt, Backyard Engineering back again. So, got a dilemma that I might need some help with. In fact, I know I need some help with. So, I'm going to ask if any of my subscribers can help me out, maybe point me in the right direction. I've been told on numerous occasions that you can't do something, and I know you can. I mean, everyone was telling me you can't make hydrogen on the fly to be able to run an engine. I proved that wrong. There wasn't a neighbour within a quarter-mile radius that didn't have their house alarm going off when I had my little hydrogen explosion on my farm gate quite a few years ago now. But I got discussing with a subscriber the other day about when I was running the Ford Fiesta on fumes. All the videos of that, they're on a Facebook account which I no longer have access to, so I can't even get the videos. And if I could, I can't download them, can't share them, so I'm going to start again. So the Fiesta, right. Basically, I had a 1 gallon, 5 litre oil can. I drilled 3 holes in the side, and I had some garden hose which basically went in the top and to the bottom. In that gallon can, I had a Coke can full of fresh petrol, poured that in, took the lid off the can, threw that away, and I had a piece of radiator hose duct taped to the top of the can, then a little bit of scaffolding pole, then another little bit of radiator hose which was duct taped to the top of the carburetor. Took all the fuel system off, started it up, and ran the fuel dry to make sure that he showed there was no fuel. I even took the pump off the pipe off the side of the pump so you could see that it wasn't drawing any fuel from the tank. So taped it all together, turned key, starts up. Now that is the engine running on fumes. Nothing but the benzene coming off the top of the evaporating petrol. Nothing more. Yeah. I ran that Fiesta for 14 hours. And at the end of the 14 hours, I still pretty much had my Coke can full of petrol. I'd probably lost about 20 mil, maybe about 20 mil, maybe not even as much as that, maybe only about 15 mil. It more or less refilled the Coke can, and there was about maybe a 2.5 mil gap between the flick lid and the level of the liquid. So the only reason that the Fiesta failed was the exhaust valves burnt out, because obviously it was a leaded head rather than an unleaded head. So I need to do this experiment again and start with a more modern car with an unleaded head. Something that will run without noticing that the fuel injectors aren't actually doing anything. So I'm probably thinking about like a 96 Escort, something like that. So the plan was, bear with me now, I can get that engine to run all day long at 1500 RPM. Getting it to set at a certain idle is easy. Getting it to rev is a different story, because basically what happens is as you're drawing in, as you're throttling up, it's trying to draw in more air, which is basically just collapsing the can, and your air fuel mixture is off the pot. But I saw a video online, and I think the guy had a Tahoe, which is basically the Vauxhall Frontiera in my country, and he had a 5 gallon bucket under his bonnet with a snap lid. Off the top of it, he had some 2.5 inch plastic tubing which went to his intake, and he basically did the same as I had done. He basically put holes in the side with the hoses down into the liquid, but you don't actually need the hoses down into the liquid. This is a fallacy. I've proved that wrong as well, again in another video, which I no longer have, so I'm going to have to recreate. So basically, he had his wife in the car, put his foot on the throttle, put her foot on the throttle, and it basically just bogged down and died. So then, off the top of the bucket, he then put a T piece with an open to air on the T, and then straight to the manifold. And he had her rev it, and as she was revving it, he basically just moved his hand off to allow a little bit more air in, and up the throttle went. So if you had twin butterflies, one on the manifold for the throttle, yeah, and then one on the bucket, and you did a little bit of low key and some cam action, you could probably get it so you could get the fuel mixture right. Why someone like Honda don't spend a couple million yen to work out this system when I can do it for £5? Yeah, a few dollars if you're an American subscriber. Just think. And then everything that comes out the exhaust, because you're not actually burning petrol, because I mean, petrol itself is basically an inflammable liquid. It is just a liquid to hold the fumes. Yeah, the fumes are the flammable stuff. Yeah, everything else is just it's a carrier, which has been proved now with E5 and E10, because all they're doing is they're just bulking out with ethanol. So you're still getting the same amount of flammable liquid, but they've removed some of the petrochemical oil content and replaced it with ethanol. So that excess that's going through the engine is basically getting unburnt, and then it's getting thrown out the back, and this is what causes your emissions. So basically like running on LPG, if you're not throwing the excess in, you're only throwing the fumes in, which are getting burnt. What's coming out of the exhaust is beautiful and clean. Yeah, hence why LPG is so good. And I'm a fan of LPG, but as people know, I'm an M57 diesel person. But M57 diesel is because I like the power, I like the fuel economy. I once said I'd never go back to diesel, but here I am. Every vehicle I've got is now an M57. So getting back to what I'm on, I can get an engine to idle at a certain RPM with zero issues whatsoever. So my thinking was, if I had got myself a genset, let's say I've actually looked at some gensets, and I can get one that will fit in an engine bay with ease. Yeah, around what kVA was that? I'm sure it was what is it? The video hasn't stalled. I'm just trying to think. I'm sure it was a 22 kVA genset. I actually had a 6.5 kVA genset in the back of my van off a little Honda engine. Yeah, well, van. It was on my double-decker bus. That's a different story altogether. So if I can get a genset to run at 1500 RPM, 22 kVA, yeah, even better if I get a genset that's 3-phase or 110. If I then got a 3-phase or 110, say, what am I running in my lathe? I'm running a 2 horsepower, so a 20 horsepower motor. And if I actually put that through a gearbox, through a prop shaft to the diff, yeah, what I want to be able to do is get that vehicle to move. So I've been told it can't be done. I've told, you need X amount of kVA and blah, 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 blah. It's beyond me. If I can't hit something with the sparkly stick or a hammer, I'm basically at a loss, especially when it comes to electronics. So my idea, initial idea, was genset, motor, rheostat, dimmer switch in between, off you go. But thinking on it, I need to find somebody to help me out. This is where it all comes in now. There should be like I've looked at Warp 9 motors, yeah, which are, I believe they're 9 kilowatt. A lot of people were using them in Volkswagen Beetles, Golfs and things in the States. But that's a DC motor. So that's a DC motor. Now all the gensets are all going to be AC. So the simplest solution was to use an AC motor on the diff. Now, that would just give like a direct drive, yeah, hence the rheostat. But if I had the motor running through a gearbox, through a prop shaft for the diff, yeah, then I can have the motor spinning at 2,800 RPM. I think they spin at, isn't it? Yeah, the faster ones. So that would just basically be spinning away, clutch in, first gear, off she goes. So she'd be constantly spinning, she'd be constantly up to power. But I've also been told, but I can go back to via my rheostat idea if I put capacitors and things in the line between the genset and the motor. So again, I don't know. I'd like to know, but if anyone out there can help me out on this, I'm wanting to get back into this project. So I was working out if I can get an engine to tick over, run a genset, to run a motor, yeah. If I put a gallon of petrol in there, yeah, and I'm just running off the fumes, yeah, I'm easily getting 20, 30, 40 hours of constant running on that engine. So if you imagine Land's End to John O'Groats, I think it's about 850 miles, you could do there and back quite easily. So you're looking at 1,000 to 1,600 miles to the gallon. Now, I don't want to do this as a challenge because I know there's challenges out there to see how far people can get. I just want to do it as proof of concept. To prove people wrong who say, hey, you can't do that, it doesn't work. I've never been one to told something doesn't work. People tell me you cut a wheel, an alloy wheel in half and weld it back together, it will never balance and it's going to explode and blah, 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 blah. People who've never seen a Honda Fireblade frame, which is basically welded together aluminium plate, and you're taking that thing up to 163 miles an hour. It's like, no, aluminium welding is specialized, but it isn't even that hard. It's not even that hard. I mean, because you're basically just adding filler metal into a puddle. Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah, you're melting and you're adding more. Yeah, in fact, it melts together as it goes, and you're just adding more. Never had an issue. Had a few little leaks, but I've never had an issue of something coming apart. Anyway, back to this this fuel idea. So the first thing I need to do is I need to find a car, petrol car. I don't have one. Well, I do have one. I've got an Austin Maxi and I've got a Triumph Herald, but both of those leaded fuel, they would just melt the engines and they're not worth doing. So I'm considering, I've got a Triumph Dolomite outside, so reasonably light vehicle, reasonably good big size engine bay. Never going to need the back seat, so I can cut all the floor out, fit a motor and a gearbox, blah 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 blah, etc. etc. But the first thing that I need is I just need to find somebody's petrol car, even if they just want to come round. Yeah, we'll put something together, start it up, show the proof of concept, and that can be the start of the mission of the video. I'm sure I can find one locally, but as I say, I don't want to be taking apart somebody's car who's going to be complaining that, the screws aren't in the right fucking place. Pardon my French YouTube algorithm. So, watch this space, guys. Watch this space. Yeah. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Yeah, because there's going to be more updates on this, because this is true backyard engineering. This is the stuff that the old whiskey people used to do when they were moonshining. Laters, dudes.